Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome back to the Free-to-Play review. So today's topic is going to be the bait deck of fate, because I'd be lying if I was not in the group of people that believed this was going to be the one featuring the guaranteed event for Freya. But in hindsight, there are plenty of indicators that that was not going to be the case. Number one being that this is during the Faehammer Titan event, which means there was going to be some amount of fate points or Titan points or whatever in the deck of fate. But also we had a little bit of a spoiler to know that there was gear up for grabs, and when there's usually gear up for grabs within the deck of fate, that's the majority of the nodes, and so thus you can also have fragments for a champion within those nodes. But I think the main takeaway there is that we were not baited. There is still going to be another deck of fate probably in a month's time or so where they're going to be featuring the fragments for Freya, just because the Asgard Divide event goes all the way till I believe October 24th, so basically a month from now. So there's 4 more weeks of time where we could have another deck of fate. Probably, if I had to guess, it's going to be after the next fusion, which I believe starts sometime next week. Before we get to the main topic, I do want to mention that this is a stream weekend. For those of you who don't know, I have started to stream Raid every other Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, and they take place on my Twitch channel, which has the same name as my YouTube channel. For now, they've been general gameplay hangouts and Q&A, and showing up is your best opportunity to interact directly with me to talk anything and everything Raid or specifics of my account. So, hope to see you there on Saturday, 9:30 Pacific a.m. So we have the Adventure deck of fate, and I've said it many times in the past, but decks of fate are my least favorite type of event because nothing is guaranteed unless you flip all of the cards. And in this deck of cards, there are 40 cards to flip in total, each costing 1,000 for a grand total of 40,000 points in order to flip the entire deck. And in this case, the objectives in order to get points are from summoning champions, so basically a summon rush, and then upgrading champions. So there is a champion training aspect, which does make this a little bit more accessible than it might otherwise seem. The breakdown of the cards are 15 common, 15 rare, and 10 epic, and you can kind of see what's in them down here. There are 25 pieces of gear, so over half of the deck is all of the Slayer gear being offered here, accessories and artifacts combined. Then you have a couple smattering of other rewards, and then of course there's a split of the Titan event points. I'm not sure exactly how that breaks down precisely, but there's going to be multiple nodes that add up all the way to 200. So 200 up for grabs from this if you're going for the Faehammer Titan event. And then if we scroll down here, if you happen to get lucky with 3 of a kind in a row, and they have to be back to back of the uncommons, rare, or epics, then you have a chance to roll on these tables. And again, that's why I don't typically like decks of fate, because down here is kind of where all of the really good rewards are, and you have to get super lucky to make that happen. And in most cases, you just break the 3 streak before you even get any of these, but I digress. Then if we scroll all the way down, you can see the breakdown for the summon rush, as well as the champion training aspects. In this particular iteration, if you wanted to max out the entire deck just by pulling shards, you would have to pull a total of 20 sacred shards, 62 primal shards, 124 void shards, 308 ancients, or a whopping 40,000 mystery shards. So if you have that, you're good to go. If we hop over to the spreadsheet, which will be linked in the description box down below, we can take a look at the same breakdown that we just went over. So for champion summoning here, summon rush aspect, these are the numbers that I just quoted for each of the shard types. But there's of course also the champion training aspect, which I would highly encourage that you participate in to offset it, to at the very least offset the amount of shards you need to pull, or to get enough points, Titan event points, if that's what you're going for, to not even need to pull any shards at all. For those of you less familiar with the spreadsheet, there are 2 rows when it comes to calculating the amount of points for champion training. The bottom row here is per capita, meaning this is the amount of points you should get for each chicken, assuming that you level them up in a fairly standard way. And then the upper row, cumulative, just means it's adding all the points of feeding chickens into chickens to make the higher level of chickens all the way up to a 6-star champion. So what this could mean in practice is that if you wanted to max out the entire deck solely with champion training, which is extremely difficult, but you'd have to make about over 4 6-star champions from scratch, and then also level them up to at least level 52. I would assume that that is not doable for majority of people, so just keep that in mind when you're deciding how to approach this, if at all. The other thing to note about this deck of fate is that it is taking the place of the weekend summoning event, so there won't be a separate summon rush. This is effectively the summon rush for the weekend. So if you are going to be pulling for the progressive chance event going on over the weekend, then you probably don't want to be pulling your shards today despite the deck of fate being live, unless of course you are going for this random guaranteed event for Weregrin Suncursed, who is a Lady Mikage epic. I can't actually show you, I can still show you. Yeah, he's this epic here on the far right, but honestly, I think your odds are better off, or your voids are better off spent just collecting the rares, the void rares, to make that happen. But if you're really antsy and he's the last champion you need for Lady Mikage, then you could technically sacrifice 25 void shards and then get your Mikage that way, but not recommended. So if you are going to be participating in the shard pulling aspect of the deck of fate, then obviously you want to wait until the progressive chance events start. And I don't have the list of champions in front of me, but the theme is increased defense from what I could tell from other content creators. And of course, it is also featuring Freya. So technically you could get her from this deck of fate if you're pulling shards for the progressive chance events, but this is not the guaranteed event for her. So I would definitely hold out longer if you're waiting for that specific iteration of the deck of fate. So what's my plan and recommendation? So my plan is to not pull a single shard, maybe some mysteries if I kind of get close to something near the end. But essentially my goal is to do as much champion training as is reasonable over the course of the weekend, just to make sure that I can get some of the Titan event points, because I skipped 70 points in the first Dungeon Divers, and the deck of fate of course has 200 in it. So if I skip the entirety of the deck of fate, I would be 30 points short of getting the 5-star soul for Thor, which I'm not really too fussed about, but I've kind of invested a lot of resources thus far to get where I'm at. So I want to at least ensure that I can actually get all the way out there. So I just need about 20 points or 20 Titan points from the deck of fate. So I'm willing to do a significant amount, if need be, of champion training to make sure that I can make that happen. But I do intend to not pull any shards over the weekend. My recommendation for you guys is kind of the same thing. I would do focus on the champion training aspect if you just want to get a handful of flips. I think so far I've made a handful of 4-star chickens and maybe one's 5-star chicken, and I've already got 2,000-ish points. And so I'm probably gonna get at least 6 to 10 flips, give or take, over the course of the weekend. Obviously, if you do wish to pull shards, if you're tempted by some of the champions of the progressive chance, then by all means, you know, that's your prerogative. You can do whatever you'd like to do. But I would highly recommend that you focus on just the champion training, and then maybe you fill with shards if you need more Titan event points, or you're just kind of trying to get some of that Slayer gear. I've mentioned this a few times when it comes to the Forge Pass sets, but as a pure free-to-play player, I basically don't consider those part of the game, because obviously you'd have to pay if you wanted to get a Forge Pass, so those sets don't really exist outside of the 15 freebies you get for every single iteration. Or those gear sets happen to be featured as parts of decks of fate or like Paths of Light, anything that's kind of just really resource intensive, that's just not super free-to-play friendly all the time. So yeah, that's going to do it for the free-to-play review of the Adventure deck of fate. Let me know in the comment section down below what your plan is surrounding this. Are you going to be focusing on the champion training aspect like myself, or are you tempted by the potential to get some increased defense champions and you want to be pulling shards over the weekend? If you were curious how far I've gotten in the Faehammer Titan event, you can see here we're over 1,100 points thus far, so we're already on the page for milestone 5. We're kind of inching here towards the end. As I mentioned, I already skipped 70 points, so there's a little bit of buffer to go, and I'm trying to use majority of the rest of that with the deck of fate, as I mentioned earlier, but ideally the goal still is to go all the way out here to 1,500. Oh, and one more thing, I want to shout out the people in the comments who dropped the pro strats relative to this most recent summon pool, but effectively you can kind of just you can earn all of the prism fragments from the tournaments, and then you don't actually have to collect them. So we can actually see that I went back and earned all the one free summon from the Spider tournament here, and I'm working towards the second one in the Odin's Trial tournament. But because those tournaments will go on, at least the rewards will go on longer than the summon pool itself, we can actually bank those for the next one. So I'll have 70, I guess 80 fragments for the next summon pool, and hopefully that one's a lot better. I'll be forced to use them at that point, but essentially I don't have to use it on this one where I don't really care about any of the champions, as I mentioned in my free-to-play review of the Orc summon pool. The main thing you have to consider is the end date of the summon pool event itself compared with the expiration date of the rewards in the tournament. So in this case, simple math, 2 days is more than 1 day, so we should be able to bank those points for the next one. So exciting tech that I learned from you guys in the comments, so shout out to you guys, appreciate it, and hopefully we all get something amazing in the subsequent summon pool. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below. It really does help out the channel, and if you are enjoying the content on the channel, then feel free to hit that subscribe button down below as well. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.